You're very welcome to the Woman to Woman show here on Confident Women Ireland's YouTube channel with me, Roisin the Cleric. We are what we eat, as they say, and we have good bugs and we have bad bugs in our body who also eat what we eat. And my guest to talk about this very issue is Dr. Eustace Ryan, consultant gastroenterologist in Tipperary University Hospital, who specialises in endoscopy and now has published her first book of a children's book called Bug of War, telling the story of our body's microbiome, friendly bugs in our body that help describe how these friendly bugs keep us healthy and give us energy. Dr. Eustace Ryan, you're very, very welcome to Confident Women Ireland's YouTube channel.
Thank you, Roisin, and thank you for the invite. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, Tan Kylie showed me the book and she said, Roisin, you have to interview Anne-Marie. She said, she's written a children's book. I said, wow, because I've often seen you on your YouTube channel, which is, no, not your YouTube, your Instagram. I've often seen you on your Instagram. And I got your book and I never even knew what microbiomes, am I pronouncing it right?
You are, absolutely. Yeah. Microbiome, that's exactly it. Yeah.
Were. So before we get into that, as a very busy consultant working in a very busy hospital in County Tipperary, what motivated you and inspired to write a book and a children's book?
Yeah, thank you, Roisin. Well, I suppose I've been a doctor for kind of longer than I haven't been a doctor actually in my life. I just realized that recently. And I specialize in gut health, really, gastroenterology. And it has always been very, very much to the fore of my mind. Like, why are all these things happening? And people come into me with, you know, the most awful things, like even young people, and they're on antidepressants and they're anxious and they're getting colitis and people are just getting cancers, everything. And I'd be very, very into preventative medicine. And I started doing my own research and my own kind of, I'd always talk to the people about their diet, which a lot of doctors don't. They don't really have the time and it wouldn't be their remit. But I started doing that. So long story short, I did a lot of research myself and into the microbiome, because this is what it was all pointing to. And you know what? It now all makes sense to me. Yeah. What happens to people all makes sense because now I know about the microbiome. So it's really just I kind of fell into it by just seeing all these things that were problems with people and just trying to see, was there some way that instead of coming to me and be diagnosed with something, that I could prevent it in the first place and it wouldn't ever happen. That's really what I tried to do. And that's where I've come from. With that.
Well, reading your book, I understood what they are. I won't go into detail, but I understood what they were and how they worked and the friendly bugs and the names that you give them. I think are amazing, you know, and my name is Mo. And I just think it's absolutely gorgeous. And, you know, the illustrations are so good. So you must, how did you sit down and go, right? Because you must be a very good teacher. Because this book explains it to me. And like,
well, that's wonderful to hear. Well, honestly, well, listen, you know, I started teaching kind of on my Instagram, really, Roisin, because I just wanted to get the word out there. And sure, you know, you knew me way back when I started this a few years ago. Nobody really listened to me about bowel health. They just didn't want to know. What they wanted to know was makeup and clothes and everything, as most people on Instagram do, which I love myself, I might add. But I really wanted to do bowel health. So I got a following on Instagram. And then I kind of switched gradually over, and now it's bowel health I do almost exclusively. So people are always saying to me as a result of that, oh, Anne-Marie, I'd love you to write a book. But you see, I felt that market was quite saturated. There's quite a few books for adults out there. And I don't even know when or where it happened. It would be about sometime early last year. It came to my head someday. I just said, you know what? I will write a book, but I'll write it for children. I try to teach them so that I'll really prevent illness then, because they will know. And so I started doing my own market research, right? So I go out on the streets, either here or I'm often elsewhere. I'm always traveling somewhere in Dublin or in Galway. And there'll be groups of school children. And I talk about secondary school now, because you're obviously not going to see junior children out. And I'd stop them and I said, sorry, do you mind if I ask you something? Do any of you know anything about the microbiome? And Roisin, not once, ever did any of them know. And I just said, I am trying to have it that by the time every youngster is 12 and 13 in schools in Ireland, that they will all know what the microbiome is. And the power of it, what's more, because I think it's very buildable, this. That book is a very basic book, describing the bugs, giving them names, basic little names like Mo and Bo, and then the bold ones are No and So and Fo, because there are bold ones as well. And I would love to just this be taught, because I just think when children get to about 12 or 13 and they mightn't feel so well, or they're getting a bit bloated, or they're a bit anxious, as you know, as anxiety really is in the society now, that they'd actually be able to relate it to what they'd eaten. Because it is so much what you eat, what you are, what you eat, you're dead right what you say. It is so important, because when you think of our basic bodies and how they work is just extraordinary. I mean, it all, Leon, I can hear you, sorry. How they work at all is extraordinary. And everything that has to just happen, you know, your food runs your system. If you don't eat it, you don't get any food. You know, your system just doesn't work. All your hormones are made, your neurotransmitter, your nerves get little messages. It is extraordinary how it works. And it works because we feed it, and we feed it with our food. And if we don't feed it with our food, it won't work. And it's as simple as that. And I'd love youngsters to understand that at an early age and eat accordingly. And I'm not saying to eat in a very regimental manner, but just to be aware that fiber is the absolute kind of basis of everything, the fruit, the vegetables, the nuts, the seeds, everything like that. And they all kind of run the microbiome. That is the good bugs, the Mo and Joe and the Bo ones. And whereas the No, So and Fo who are in there also actually run on sugar. So they get sugar and they become more powerful than Mo, Bo and Joe. And that's the message I'm trying to get across. And it sounds very simplistic, but it is actually quite simple. That is actually how it works. The good bugs have to be in a preponderance for us all to thrive. And if they're not, we don't thrive. It's just really, that's as simple as the way it works, you know? So that's really how I came to where I am now. So,
and when you think about it, you really do explain it beautifully in the book. That, you know, the good bugs, Joe, and let me get this right, Joe and Bo.
Yeah, Mojo. You see, Mojo, I felt that was a good to, and Bo then, because I heard the doctor call Bo at a meeting. I thought that's so cute. So I called the third one Bo. Yeah.
And that they have to eat the good bugs to have the energy and be able to work in our gut. And
to work, because most of our, you've heard of serotonin. Your serotonin is what they call your happy hormone. And about 80% of it is made in your gut. And so are loads of your neurotransmitters, you know, the things that make the little, like your nerves don't actually touch off each other. There's a gap between them, and the neurotransmitters and things like that bridge the gap. An awful lot of those are made. So are a lot of our vitamins. And if we don't give them the raw materials in which to make these, with which to make them, we're in trouble, basically. And you've heard the term leaky gut, and that the bugs protect the gut. These good bugs make a mucus lining. They protect the tight junctions in the gut and protect it with the mucus lining. It's just extraordinary. Like it really, really is. And it just also makes sense for me now. And I've got people coming in to me, and Roisin, I could just meet them outside the front door of the hospital and give them my way of eating sheet and not ever have to scope them. You know? Oh yeah. I mean, it is so important.
And I love how you have the illustration in the book where you say that the good bugs, Mo, Joe, and Bo, they like things that grow on trees and in the ground, in the fields, and they tend to be better for you and for your microbiome. But you know what? It's about going back to basics, what our grandmothers
Absolutely.
and mothers used to give us. And that the bad bugs, they live off, and this, the other page, they live off the factory processed foods with all
Yeah.
the additives.
Absolutely. Because Roisin, what happens when things go into a factory because of, you know, the feeding the masses and the cheap food policy and CAP and all those things, they basically started making food that would stay fresh for longer. So i.e. preservatives, additives, emulsifiers, you name it, they're in the food, and they last. You can see how long they can last in a cupboard. That's not natural. And they did all that in order to have cheap food. And you see, our grandmothers, I'd say, would your grandmother recognize some of those things coming out of the door of the factories? They certainly wouldn't. And we weren't reared on them. And unfortunately, these illnesses, particularly say the autoimmune illnesses, particularly in women, because they're more inclined to get it, the kind of things like the rheumatoid arthritis and the sclerodermas and the SLEs and all those, they all are mediated by the gut, all of them. And it's absolutely extraordinary. As they say, your genes kind of load the gun and your lifestyle pulls the trigger. And that is so true. And if you're, you know, they say every bite you take can either kill you or cure you. And that's been quite dramatic, but on a cumulative basis, that is actually how it is. It also has huge implications for Alzheimer's. Also a condition that women get much more than men. You know that at least 2/3 of people with Alzheimer's are women. Somewhat to do with maybe losing estrogen in menopause as well. And that's why you have to be absolutely so vigilant about this diet. I'm always been asked at my talks, you know, what about the menopause? And I say, the diet I recommend, the way of eating, I don't like even calling it a diet, the way of eating that I recommend would also very much apply to the menopause, and for to be even more religious, if you like that expression, about the way of eating, because it just is so very important to prevent disease. And Alzheimer's, they're saying Alzheimer's is absolutely in the echelons now. I think there's 5 million people in America with it now, and they're saying by the time 2050 comes along, like the equivalent of the people living in New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles, that number of people in America will have Alzheimer's. It is absolutely huge. It's so, and it is very much a disease of lifestyle, unfortunately.
Wow.
And you know, it's so far reaching, all this stuff about the microbiome. You could go on about it forever. It's very much indicative in heart disease. And you'd say, well, you know, heart disease, sure, that's the heart. But you see, it's all to do with inflammation in the arteries. And you eat the kind of saturated food and all the fats and the animal fats and everything, and you get your arteries kind of get sticky, and you get clots, and you build up plaque, all these things. It is, and heart disease would be the biggest killer, but it is harping back again to what you eat. So,
and
you know,
what I really loved as well about the book, I loved every page. I was like a little child. I was like, every human, as a human beings, we are very individualized, and we have our microbiomes in our body are different in every human being.
Yeah, absolutely. Every single person on earth is different. And there's been lots of studies done even on identical twins, Roisin, even born, you know, bred the same way and reared the same way, not separated. And they've different microbiomes. Everybody is different. And it's an absolutely extraordinary science. But it's really very simple when you think about it, when you think about the way our lives have gone now, and the modern diseases and the obesity epidemic and all those things, it's actually so understandable when you think of the way our food has gone. You know, you can just kind of stand and even look in the supermarkets at what is available. Firstly, what's cheaper than other things, you know, the packaged foods and the ready meals, the takeaways. and people's baskets full of them, and the soft drinks, all those kind of things. So it is just all, it's all a modern thing. And you see, like I feel about life, we've never had it so good. You know, you can lie in bed and on your phone book an entire holiday in Southeast Asia, or you can travel from Dublin to Belfast on the motorway without stopping. But we've never been so sick. There's so many people on medication. There's so many people on antidepressants. It is just absolutely huge. And it is hugely to do with the microbiome, anxiety and depression also, because of inflammation, because of leaky gut and the vagus nerve going from the gut right to the brain with its messages constantly feeding back the brain with information. It's a two-way system. You know, it is very, very important.
So on your page, you've also said that we should be eating rice. And let me get back. Rice, nuts, as you said, vegetables. So it's really about going back to shopping local in our local supermarket, our local butcher, our local fishmonger, and fruit and vegetable shops.
Absolutely.
Fresh food.
Because fresh food, because it's just so delicious. And, you know, people say to me, oh, I couldn't because I've such a longing for chocolate and cakes and crisps and ice cream and biscuits. And honestly, if you eat the way that I recommend, it's not that you totally lose your longings. I will honestly hold my hand up and say the favorite thing in the world for me is a Cadbury's Dairy Milk chocolate. I love it, but I don't long for it anymore. I will always have a piece. I have one piece most days, but not a bar, a piece. And you change your taste buds. If you eat the way I recommend, eating the fibrous foods and the fresh foods and the things that grow on the ground or grow on the trees, like I said in the book, your taste buds change ever so gradually, and you just end up loving your food and thriving on it. You lose a bit of weight if you want to lose weight. I have no difficulty now whatsoever with keeping my weight as it is. It never ever budges. And I eat, as I say to a lot of the people that I look after in the hospital, they don't eat enough and they're overweight. And what it is they're not eating enough of the good things. You can eat almost any amount of them. They're calorie poor and nutrient dense, and they're so very good for you. And they change your taste buds, and it is extraordinary. And I know people love to have their treats, and I'd be the very one that you'll see down on the ground floor in Kilkenny having a bun and a cup of coffee. I absolutely will. But if you can get 80% of the time being good, as I call it, then you've 20% to play with. I would probably be 90% to 10%. And I've never felt as well in my life. Even my thinking is clearer. And, you know, when I give my talks, as I do quite a bit now, I use no prompts and no overheads and no PowerPoint, because I'm useless anyway at that. I just talk. I could talk any length of time without stopping, because I kind of found my passion and I just want to tell people this. And like that, I started with the book to try to tell children, because they're like little sponges. And I think if they would listen and learn, but the plans I would have for the book, Roisin, is to get it into schools. And an awful lot of people have said that to me since they've bought it, and you know, I've sold it. Can sells it for me. It's going to be in a bookshop in Galway in Charlie Burns from tomorrow, I believe, because they have taken some off me. And then I sell it via Revolut myself to people that follow me on Instagram. And I would plan for it to go into schools, because I would love it taught from about first class as part of a module in SPHE. And in order to do that, I have actually, I'm setting up a website, because that's what you have to do to teach books in schools now. It's not like when you or I were in school, it's all different now. So you have a whiteboard, and the teacher has resources to be able to print things. So I have the website that she goes into page 1 and 2, say, of that book, and little things, an explanation to her about the bugs will come up, so she'll know what she's teaching if she hasn't heard of it before. And then it gives her little pointers what to ask the children and what to revise with them, little word searches. I intend to make little videos of I'm going to get little finger puppets made of Mo and Joe and Bo. So it's all very buildable. I'm really excited about it. And once I do that, I'll be able to go into schools. I'd love that, because teachers out there, if they just are listening to this, I think it would just change everything for our future health statistics.
Yes.
If children just understood this, I wouldn't be seeing teenagers down, you know, as I see them now with the double pack of custard creams and a can of Coke for their lunch.
Yeah.
I think they'd think twice about that, because they'd understand what the microbiome was. And I'm not saying it would rule their whole lives, but they'd always kind of know. It wouldn't be like those teenagers I was stopping on the streets. They'd know. They'd say, "Wow, yeah, I feel a bit anxious and I didn't feel so well. And look what I ate yesterday." I want them to just relate it, because people extraordinary, they actually don't relate it. And it's all that it's all that you have. It's like putting petrol in your car.
Yes.
All you have is what goes into your system by what you eat and drink.
And it gives, and I also think, you know, even for children learning this in school, and for parents buying the book, reading the book, the bedtime stories, children will also want to go shopping. And they say, no, Joe and Bo, they don't like this food. No, they're the good ones. And no, that's the bold, have them here. That's the bold, no, so, and fo.
Yeah, exactly. And they just relate it. And I mean, it's so exciting when you actually do it. And I'd love to see, that will be, I would plan this book to be in first and second class. And I'm going to hopefully, if this is a success, write one for third and fourth class and one for fifth and sixth, gradually getting more detailed. And I'd love them to be able to be going to the shops, and even the teacher give them a lesson, go to a shop and bring me something with a load of ingredients on the back, because really they say you should probably have no more than 10 ingredients in anything, and the first one should not be sugar. And if you start reading the packets, and you know, Roisin, they write them so small on the packets, I do feel they do it purposely to catch the likes of me out who can't read without glasses when they're small like that. And you just buy them. And what I do now is I take a photograph of the packet and I bring it home and I make it bigger on my phone and I just count the ingredients. And I counted in the shop Iceland one day, the chicken tiki masala had 87 ingredients.
Really?
You tried to tell me how that possibly could be any good for anybody. You'd be better off eating a piece of cardboard, probably, you know, so it is so important. And I'd love children to understand that without any pressure. And I'm not talking about any weight thing or anything, just the goodness of the food would make them so much more content and so much clearer thinking. And they'd understand really how food works for you or against you, as the case may be.
And parents will love you, because children will then really enjoy and actively want to go and eat the vegetables, eat the nuts.
Well, I'd hope so. And I mean, you know yourself, it costs a lot of money to feed a family. And it is expensive. But I actually don't think fruit and vegetables, if you look around and you shop around, are going to be any more expensive than the ready-made meals. I actually don't. And one whole secret in all of this is that you make your meals from scratch, as I would do every evening here, and also that you kind of think ahead. I mean, it's a way of life, a way of living, but it is actually very easy. And one of my followers has even sent me the most fantastic thing from Lidl. I don't know if you've seen it, that for €3 they put imperfect vegetables and fruit, and maybe ones that are a little going out of date, and sell them off, a nice big bag of them for €3.
I never knew that.
No, I didn't either till she sent it to me. Val sent that to me this evening. And I would think that is extraordinary. Now, I'm sure it's not in all the Lidls, maybe it's in the bigger ones. But wouldn't that be a fantastic thing?
Well, we have a new one opening up here in Lochboy and Kilkenny.
Oh, we do. I saw it all lit up this evening when I was on. I was late for this. It's all lit up, and it looks like they're actually stocking the shelves.
Wow.
And it looks really...
If Lidl even stocked your book for children.
No. Well, they don't. Well, maybe, you know, wouldn't it be lovely to start? We could be the only country in the world teaching the microbiome to school children. Why not?
And why you go back to basics. You're actually helping parents helping parents making the children think it's their decision to eat
Yeah.
our fruits and vegetables and our nuts instead of fighting with them. Eat that. You have to eat that. You
Yeah.
know, and
Absolutely. And it does, I think it kind of works because a lot of my followers would have children, and they say now, do you know what? She's kind of saying now, do you know, Mum, I'm going to have oatmeal instead of Cocoa Pops because Mo and
yes.
Joe would much prefer them. So
Oh,
it is happening. It is happening actually, which is wonderful. But I'd love to see it, of course, I would, on a bigger scale, because I'd love to change our health statistics because they are going down the Swanee.
yeah.
And I really, really do. I mean, I did a lot of vaccinating on my days I don't scope. I took up vaccinating in nursing homes. And Roisin, all the Alzheimer's is shocking. And I was really looking forward to it because I love older people and I thought I'd be having to crack with them. And well, honestly, there was hardly any of them I could have a conversation with. And, I was saying to myself, my God, I'm going to have to try to do something way back to prevent all this happening. So this is my token towards that. And I just think it could work.
And also, when you finish with the children and the teenagers, it could be the pregnant mummies. It could be the menopausal midlife women.
Everybody.
And then,
Yeah.
so there's every age. But because I only discovered recently that women's health and the study of women's health, that most were all studied on men. And it's only in recent years that women's bodies were in with all the
That's
the
right.
because we have
an awful lot of them. Yeah, a lot of the studies are on men, and they did a very big study in America on healthcare workers, now thousands, a huge one, and they got an awful lot of very good, interesting results out of it. There are studies going on all over the world about all of this, and people are really sitting up and taking notice. They really, really are. It's wonderful. But to my knowledge, I stand corrected. I don't think anybody has written a book like that to explain it to children. And I just think
you should think about even getting them into children's toys.
I know. Well, I would love that. You can get those cushions that are in the shape of I'd love to get them. But I am getting puppets made. My sister's making me one, and I've got a puppeteer making me two more to be able to go shopping with Mo and Bo. That's what I'd love. And I'll do videos for the website for the schools, showing them going shopping, showing them baking and cooking. It's very, very, very buildable, this, Now, I must say a word before I go any further about my nephew, because he did the illustrations for me. And without him, firstly, my daughter thought of the name of the book. Now, did you ever see a more perfect name for that book, actually? Bug of War. It was just the perfect name. And then my nephew, David, who is an architect, he works in Galway, did the illustrations. And fair dues to him. I wrote it in longhand because I have no computer skills, as you can see from earlier tonight. And I took a photo of each page and I put a sticker on each page, and I said, I would suggest maybe in this page, Mo and Joe are sitting in deck chairs, and this kind of thing. And he just delivered it in spades. He just used his imagination. And this is what he sent back to me. I never had to change one thing that he did, nor did he ever have to ask me what I'd written. He understood it all, and he did that. Isn't that extraordinary?
Wow, because they are
he's very talented.
Beautiful.
And his mum Gerard is very talented too, and she's the one who's making me one of the puppets.
I love it.
Yeah, so that is it. And then we talk in that page about poo.
Yes.
yes, and about what happens in the because the poo is very important, like it really is. And there's nothing to be ashamed about. Everybody does it.
We all look at our poo. My mom used to make us when we were younger look at our poo. And I know it's like urine.
Yeah.
And
it's quite a thing. Yeah, it's quite a thing. And then the end of the book, that's why you see it's kind of aimed at schools. It says next year I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, in that it'll come back the following year. But I think the way this will work out is maybe first and second class will use that book.
Yes.
And then third and fourth, the more advanced one, and fifth and sixth, the more advanced one again. And what knows, I might have to do one for first year and second year too, which I'd be happy to. So this is the start of that journey, but I am really hopeful that it will help people, because I can tell you, It's no fun to have to see the hardship people
No.
have because their health changes. And I absolutely hate having to tell people they have bowel cancer, and I have regularly to do that. And I've ruined their lives, you know. I just feel I've changed everything for them. And if I could just, as I call it, get my hands on them, wind back the clock to when they were 5 and 8 and 10 and 12 and 20, and not ever smoke, eat properly, they just won't get the diseases that we're seeing now. They absolutely won't.
And
And
should we be eating in season? Because I always
yeah,
I love at the weekends, I love my strawberries, my blueberries, and
yeah,
my grapes. But every time I pick them up, I go, where did they travel from?
I
How do
know.
they stay fresh? And
Yeah,
what chemicals am I eating? Now I
yeah,
started thinking that way. So
yeah.
I'm coming onto your page.
Well, that's a good way of thinking, Roisin, and you're dead right. Because of course, yes, we can do the world and all. And season-wise, yes, we should be. But you see, when you buy frozen fruit, which by the way is just as good as a
Yes,
fresh, they are frozen at their peak. So I
right.
feel yes, of course, in season, but within reason. But something you said there, yes, organic food, it probably will in our lifetimes eventually dawn on everybody that yes, that is the way to go. Now again, the problem is cost. It's
Yeah.
prohibitively expensive to buy organic, but I actually do now almost anything that I can find in the way of fruit and vegetables. The ones and Dunn Stores, Kilkenny, is probably the best array I've seen. Actually, it's the best of any of them to
Right.
get organic produce. But I know it's prohibitive for a family, and that's where the government will come in to farmers, because it doesn't pay farmers to grow organic food. It actually
Right.
doesn't, because it's too expensive, it's too difficult, etc., etc. So vegetables wise, I do buy them now. Particularly the two I buy are potatoes and carrots. I'll tell you why. I do feel that the skins of those are particularly valuable. And I
Right.
think it's an awful shame to take the skin off them.
Right.
So if you buy them organic, at least you don't have to take the skin off then.
Ah,
I never skin potatoes or carrots. Like, unless I'm doing mashed potatoes, obviously, never.
yeah.
And I always do carrots with their skins on. And because they're organic, if they weren't organic, you shouldn't, and you can't. You should absolutely peel them. So I know you can wash them very well, but they say it seeps in through it. So I would agree with you. Organic is the way to go. They say blueberries particularly pick up pesticides, unfortunately, and that should be
Right.
organic. Not that easy to get, but Dunn Stores have them at the moment. If you see beside where the other blueberries, they have organic ones. And I bought a job lot of them the other day, and I put them in the freezer. So
So
I know
buy
I'll have
frozen.
those.
So
Yeah.
buy frozen foods rather
But
than the
yeah,
ones
or buy the
packaged.
fresh. If you can buy organic berries, fresh, and then freeze them. I bought the fresh blueberries and Duns in the little packets that size,
Yes.
and then I froze them. But you can buy some organic frozen blueberries, but they're not commonly you can buy them. One of the companies, Bun Lawn, they do them, but they're
Yeah.
hardly ever in Duns. So I would, as far as possible, buy organic fruit and vegetables, yes, but prohibitively expensive, and something will have to be done about that, because you can do the world and all. But if you're taking in toxins like pesticides and
Yeah.
chemicals and the leads and the metals, awfully, awfully bad for you. And like, you can do the world and all, but you can still be getting it wrong inadvertently,
Yeah.
because the stuff is in the food, which is an awful shame. But that's a part of our lives now.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
buy local, and
buy
I
local.
buy local, buy off your local shop traders in the local high streets and
Yeah.
surrounding streets, and buy off local people, local farmers. And if we do that, that would bring down the price of buying
It
organic.
absolutely would support them, support people that are doing this. If you see people or buy that there are some little stalls selling organic produce,
Mm,
support them,
yeah.
because they need your support. And if they do well enough, they'll be able to continue. It's just so very important. And I just think because of the way I live now and the way I eat, I love my food so much better. I really do. And you feel kind of, it sounds daft, but you kind of feel almost clean inside and
Yeah.
fresh. You just know everything is working for you. You just think of
Yeah.
those things in your stomach and go down through your bowel, and you think, well, do you know what? Like I've done really well today. And it does pay, because there is the feedback via the vagus nerve and via all your hormones and everything, your messages to your brain to give you contentment. And it's not alone that your body is working. You should feel reasonably content. You should be sleeping well, reasonably optimistic about the future. You should feel like taking a bit of exercise. Of course, that's very important. Stress is very difficult to deal with, but I think you'd be able to deal with it a little bit better if you eat this way and you've plenty of fiber in your diet to feed Mo, Joe and Bo. And I just think, yeah, that's the way to go.
So getting back to our poo for the mummies,
Yes.
and for the older generation, you said, like, they say that if there's blood in the poo, it's bad. But
Yes.
you think then about the mojo and bows, they give us energy. They clean out our system. They really look after our digestive system. So you do the endoscopy.
Yes, colonoscopies.
Yeah. And so an awful lot of people, and I know I had it because I had an awful lot of acid reflux. I had bowel issues. So really, would acid reflux also be a part of not eating the right mojos and bows?
Well, yes and no. Yes, it is, of course, because you can do the world and all eating well, but you might have what we call a hiatus hernia, or you might have gastritis or something. You can get all these things. You see, there is a bug in the tummy causes those kind of things called Helicobacter, right? Now, it causes awful trouble in the tummy. And there's schools of thought out there to say, actually, you shouldn't get rid of it, but actually the World Health Organization will consider it a carcinogen. So anytime we find it, we give antibiotics for 2 weeks in order to kill it. So yes, if you're on the tablets to reduce the acid in your stomach, they can affect Mo and Joe and Bo. And an awful lot of people, Roisin, are on those nowadays, the proton pump inhibitors, they're called. And some people need to be on them long term, some people don't, and they're on them anyway. But overall, if you can eat really well, like I've suggested, and you keep a food diary, you're able to avoid an awful lot of the trouble you would get. Now, if you have a very big hiatus hernia, which is a weakness of the valve from the gullet into the stomach, basically, if you can see my hand, the valve should be tight, and some people is wide open, okay? And a bit of the stomach actually herniates up through the gullet, like when you go belching, the stomach comes up and down, and that's what happens. Now, if you got that structural deficit in you, which a lot of people have, I might add, you could do the world and all with your good eating, but you'll still be a bit miserable. So what I say to people is keep a food diary and see is there a pattern to the way you're feeling and you're eating, because there could be some food that's really good for you, like onions or stuff like that, but you can't eat them. So you avoid the likes of them. And so that kind of thing, do you understand me? If you can do the world and all and still have structural deficits in you, or you can have a bug in your tongue, or you can have celiac disease, or you have something like that, that the world and all good of eating won't really change anything. You just have to be very mindful and just keep a record of it and see is there a pattern. And it's very easy to go for a gastroscopy if you're having a lot of acid reflux and a lot of trouble, or a lot of bloating, or a lot of things like that. A gastroscopy takes 2 or 3 minutes. It's really easy. It makes sure you don't have celiac disease. It makes sure you don't have Helicobacter. It makes sure you don't have reflux. And why not have one? I do, I suppose, the bread and butter of what I do. I do so many. But a lot of people would not need them, A, if they didn't smoke, and B, if they didn't put weight on their tummies, because if you have weight on in your tummy, you're going to have worse reflux, So lifestyle would be very important as well.
So it's really about being very conscious of what you eat. Go back to basics of what our grandmothers and great-grandmothers and our mothers also taught us. I said that backwards, but, they taught our mothers.
Yeah.
Buy in season and eat what is grown on trees
Yes.
or in the land, and nuts and rice, and
Yeah.
really just cook from scratch,
Yeah.
and really just become very aware of, and stop eating processed foods in factories with the additives, because that is what feeds mo, so, and fo, and they then fight in the belly and
Yeah.
in the gut with mojo and bo, and
Exactly.
the battle.
A battle ensues, and whoever is more powerful and fed better will win. And you will then reap the benefits, or the benefits thereof. It's just it's so very simple. And what's more, if you eat to feed Mo and Joe and Bo, and you're feeling well, you're much more in tune with your body. You actually could really feel yourself living. You're feeding the right. You're much more in harmony with your body. There is no doubt about that. I know that. I'm much more aware now because I eat the way I do. I've never been as kind of content in myself and so able to think as clear. And as I say, I've never been as old, but I've never felt as well. And I just think it's just such an opportunity to be able to try to spread the word of this, that I'm going to spend a considerable amount of my time trying to do this. And I'm working on the website at the moment. That is not simple, because for it to go into schools now, each page has to be user friendly for the teacher and the class. Right. So I have to go right through it again and get that way of thinking into what I'm explaining to the teacher. But I'm getting through it, and I will do it. And having exposure like this and talking to you, you're so good, because this is what matters to me, is getting the word out there. I'd be delighted.
I'll tell you, this is what matters to me too. Understanding mojo and bo, and the bold little micros is no, so, and bo. And you know what? I don't want to have to put them on the naughty stair.
Exactly. Fair dues to you.
And you know what? It's reading this book has helped me understand my gut health and what I'm putting into my body. And
That's wonderful.
I eat.
Okay, and that is wonderful, and I'm so delighted. And you feel free, anybody, like, that's what I do on Instagram. People send me messages, if they're asking me things and that, and I answer them as best I can as to whether they need to see their own doctor, or whether I'd suggest changing something, or I do that all the time, because it's just lovely to feel well. It's awful to feel not well. Like, if you haven't got your health, you've nothing really. You lose everything. And I'm trying to prevent people from losing it. And that's really what I'm about.
Well, Dr. Anne-Marie Eustace Ryan, when you have Mo, Joe, Bo, and No So Fo as puppets, I would love to bring them on the Competent Women Islands Woman to Woman show.
I'd love to. I will definitely come on. I'll let you know. I will.
I mean, do you know what? You'd actually buy them for my future grandchildren, or for friends who have children, because they could be the next Islands Bosco.
Yes, they could be. Well, they could be. Well, we have to get it out there. People power. I mean, the only thing that's going to get this out there is word of mouth. Yes. People listening to the likes of this saying, my God, this is a very good idea, and going with it. I think this is very buildable. The whole thing could become a complete trend. We'd be the only country in the world doing it, and we'd change our health stats back to what they should be, which they could be. Yeah, it's just so important.
Dr. Eustace Ryan, where can just remind the viewers where they can buy the book and how they can get in contact with you?
Okay, so the book is available in one bookstore only by today, and that's Cannes Bookstore in Kilkenny, in James Street in Kilkenny. My very, very good friend Can. But as of tomorrow, it should be in Charlie Byrne's bookshop in Galway as well, in the Corn Market. Now, they can also get in touch with me on Instagram. That's how most of them have gone. And I just take payment by Revolut or PayPal. And my Instagram name is my name. So it's Dr. Anne-Marie Eustace Ryan, and there's no E in the Anne. So it's DrAnneUstaceRyan. and that's my name on Instagram. So that's really the 3 ways. But I would hope to get it into more bookshops, Roisin. But I sent one to Hodges Figgis in Dublin and heard nothing back. But I'm going to chase up a few of those. And Can was telling me about one in Limerick I should approach as well, but I just haven't got around to it. So I will do
Can
that.
offers an online. So if anybody emails
Yes,
or goes on
indeed.
to Can's books in James's Street, her website, she's also on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, that can post them to you. You can pay online to Can and she can post them
Wonderful.
to you. And
Yeah.
what I would do is I put all your links to your Instagram, and when you have your website, I'll add it on to the description box below. But Anne-Marie, thank you for introducing me to Mojo Bo and
It's a pleasure.
Bo.
It's such a pleasure, and thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about it.
Anne-Marie,
I really appreciate it.
I tell you, I'll be buying the books for all the children. There'll be a lot of presents and Christmas presents. And then when you have the puppets out, they'll be going along with them. The best gift you can give a child.
Well, absolutely. And, into libraries and that, I know the library have expressed interest in stocking them as well. So,
yes.
And there's children always in the libraries. So, yeah, wonderful.
Well, the very, very best of success with Mojo Bo and so. No so
and fun with the knee, as I say, the only one to thee.
And the bug of war, and fighting the war of the bugs in our tummy and making us all so much more healthier.
Thank you so much, Roisin. Thank you
so much indeed.
Bye, honey.
Bye.
Okay, bye. Bye.